WrestleMania in 2012, WrestleMania 28, the end of an era Hell in a Cell match. And out of all the opponents The Undertaker's faced inside Hell in a Cell, forgetting about WrestleMania, now we're adding Shane McMahon to that list. It makes no sense to me whatsoever, and I'm beginning to wonder how they're going to try to create psychology for this match. Obviously, they're going to try to create some kind of psychology for this match, but I can't see how they're going to create psychology for this match. How are they going to get over, say, Shane McMahon coming out dressed up as a druid, disguised as a druid, attacking The Undertaker, or popping out of a casket? There's no way. Probably Shane's going to see himself in a shrine The Undertaker will create. He'll obviously be trying to haunt Shane McMahon with video packages, trying to intimidate him because of his reputation he's garnered at WrestleMania. There's no way it could work. You know, you could put The Undertaker in the ring with Bray Wyatt, psychology would work. The Undertaker and Sting, psychology would work. Triple H, Shawn Michaels, King Kong Bundy, Jake the Snake Roberts, psychology would work because they too are some of the greatest psychologists in the wrestling business. But I mean, Kane versus Shane McMahon is a different ball game altogether from Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker, because this match has never happened, or at least I can't remember ever having seen this match happen. Psychology with Kane is entirely different from The Undertaker. I mean, Shane McMahon versus Kane kind of just happened because of Kane going crazy and tombstoning Shane's mother, and then Shane McMahon shows up and confronts Kane over his actions towards his mother. It was a match that kind of just happened, and outside of that you had Goldberg and Triple H as your main event, kayfabing how disastrous the feud between Shane McMahon and Kane actually was. But Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker is obviously your main event. It's coming from out of nowhere, and so many people are finding more criticism and time and criticizing this match than actually putting it over. Yeah, we may be hearing chants of "this is awesome," but the only reason why we're hearing chants of "this is awesome" is because this is the first time we've seen Shane McMahon in over 7 years, a difference of 7 years, which ties The Rock for his absence in 2011 when he came back for the first time since 2004, and fans were chanting "this is awesome." But the reaction Shane McMahon got was incredible, and that's why they are fueled by this match of The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon, and why WWE Creative seems to be putting all of its faith into this match, which I question. Yeah, we may be hearing chants of "this is awesome" at this point, but will we still be hearing it in the fall of the WrestleMania 32, or be clicking on these YouTube video commentaries with fallout shoots, which you can expect from me, and be very disappointed in what they have to say about the WrestleMania main events that we are faced with? The McMahons are headlining WrestleMania this year for the first time in years. It's been, a difference of 10 years since the McMahons headlined WrestleMania. Bret Hart versus Vince McMahon can't be considered as a match where Vince headlined or McMahon headlined WrestleMania. Not even some of the matches Triple H has had in recent years can be considered times when the McMahons headlined WrestleMania. But this is the first WrestleMania in years the McMahons actually have gone as far as to headline. And I'm kind of wondering if the buy rates are going to be up for the actual pay-per-view, which you can buy on digital cable and pay-per-view subscriptions, or on the network in terms of subscribers. I think more people are going to be unsubscribing to the network once they actually realize, once realization sets in of how disastrous this year's WrestleMania actually looked and actually turns out to be. There are going to be more Fallout shoot videos thrown up on YouTube than I would actually imagine we would be seeing or hearing from radio show hosts and columnists who are going to be posting these videos weeks after WrestleMania and writing about it for a really long time with how disastrous this one looks. The best match on the card thus far looks to be that triple threat match which is looming between Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Sasha Banks for the championship, which I am hoping sees Sasha Banks come away as champion because of the chance of "we want Sasha" obviously louder or just as loud as the Shane McMahon "this is awesome" chants, which was to be expected. And to be honest with you guys, it shocked me just as much as everyone is a part of the wrestling world who is a fan. Everybody talking about it on Twitter, Instagramming about this in the way of photos and videos. It shocked me that here comes the money music hits and Shane McMahon comes out. That was the last person I expected to return in the fall of the Fastlane this year. I was expecting a bigger return, honestly, than Shane McMahon. He was the last personality that I thought was going to show up on WWE, especially after having read years ago that Shane McMahon had sold the stock in WWE. His 25% or more of control of WWE back to Triple H and Stephanie. He left and didn't want anything to do with the wrestling business. I believe he left for UFC and did something minimal outside of wrestling with the UFC, and now all of a sudden he's back and wants the business to be persevered and kept for future generations, like his sons and Stephanie's daughter and son of Triple H and Stephanie. They want to be around for the future generations, and he's back to ensure that. I don't know if Shane really is as accurate as what he seems to sound as wanting to preserve the business, because how can you preserve it with a main event looking as disastrous as it is for WrestleMania right now? The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of other main events that I could offer to you. But again, it goes back to these injuries of Randy Orton and John Cena. They are out. And obviously Shane McMahon and The Undertaker is what's in. And I can't say that I really agree or concur with WWE Creative's decision or motive behind this, because I don't even know if I want to know what the motive is behind this, as we try to figure out, what kind of direction we are headed in creatively for WrestleMania. Psychology seems to be thrown out the window with this match, and ratings look to be at an all-time low continuously in the fallout of WrestleMania week in and week out on Raw. Yeah, they've been at an all-time low for weeks now with Triple H and Stephanie, if not months, but they're going to go even lower if this match between Shane McMahon and The Undertaker does not come through. We're going to have to see a lot of high spots in this match hit by both The Undertaker and Shane McMahon, and they are going to have to work to their best of ability to make this match actually look better than what it looks right now heading in to what is your biggest event of the year. And a venue like Dallas, Texas at AT&T Stadium, do you really want to see this match headlining WrestleMania? Do you want to go as far as to see the McMahons headlining WrestleMania from the point of view of a radio host and journalist covering wrestling and been around it for a number of years? I don't want to see this, and I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that we don't want to see this as wrestling fans. The wrestling community, in terms of the population, no matter if it's 100, 1,000, a million people, a billion people out there who watch this, I don't think anyone of the wrestling population and or community wants to have to suffer through this. It's bad enough hearing Michael Cole on the headset doing commentary with Jay Mill and Jerry the King Lawler for WrestleMania for over 4.5 hours, but to have to hear him calling a match like Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker, stop the pain. We want something better happening this year at WrestleMania. I know we're only weeks away from WrestleMania, something under 40 or 50 days from WrestleMania or something like that, and there's no time to create anything more spectacular than what's already being offered. I mean, The Rock's not going to come in and save WrestleMania like he did years ago, because it's not focusing on The Rock's comeback to professional wrestling. If he were facing Brock Lesnar and Dean Ambrose was out, and we were faced with something like The Rock versus Brock Lesnar, then yeah, probably The Rock would come in and save WrestleMania, or even Chris Jericho would save WrestleMania. But there's no time to build up for anything bigger for The Rock to do. Obviously, feuding with the New Day or something with the Usos and his family is what's set for The Rock at WrestleMania this year, so he's not going to really factor in to any major main event. If he does factor into one of the two, it'll be the Roman Reigns versus Triple H match over something like Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker. But who's to say The Rock coming out and rock bottoming The Undertaker, helping Shane McMahon, will not be what happens. Obviously, what we're focusing on here in this match and what we think is going to happen, the obvious conclusion to be drawn for Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker is the interference of somebody from the outside, either Sting or somebody we haven't seen for a very long time. And that's what a lot of people are betting on that will happen this year at WrestleMania, whether it be Sting or somebody else that we haven't seen for a long time, even Goldberg or Batista, are names that could come out to assist Shane McMahon. Some way, somehow, Shane has to win this match. If he loses and puts up a hell of a fight and goes out swinging, that's one way of ending WrestleMania. And The Undertaker's perfect career, what would have to have been perfect at WrestleMania, despite his loss 2 years ago in 2014 at WrestleMania 30, that was one way of looking at it. But I mean, The Undertaker's career at WrestleMania going out perfect, I don't know. Shane's going to have to win this match, and some way, somehow, he's going to have to pull off a shocking victory, which could come in the way of an interference, setting up for something like Sting versus The Undertaker. This is how we could get to that point of seeing The Undertaker versus Sting, and probably something having to do with Shane McMahon down the road. And if it doesn't happen here at WrestleMania 32, then I'm out. I don't know where or how this is going to factor into happening when I'm talking about the Undertaker versus Sting match, because there's so much money, there's so much that can be generated in the way of conversation. There's just so much attention about the Undertaker and Sting and just how they are so similar, representing their separate different organizations over the years, and just how this match has been wanted to be seen by wrestling fans for forever. And if it doesn't factor in somehow this year at WrestleMania 32, I don't know how it's going to factor in at all. I'm out in trying to come up with times and places for the Undertaker versus Sting to happen. But it seems like we're missing out on a lot of psychology for this match, with Shane McMahon and The Undertaker being a substitute to what could be happening to, say, John Cena versus The Undertaker, or even The Undertaker versus Randy Orton for just the second time at WrestleMania, as opposed to John Cena and The Undertaker having happened before, but never at a WrestleMania. That's something to take into consideration. These matches, Randy Orton and John Cena, have happened either at WrestleMania before in 2005 with Orton, and never with John Cena and The Undertaker having wrestled before on pay-per-views like Vengeance and even editions of Raw and SmackDown, but never before have they headlined WrestleMania, which could be a match for The Undertaker's career. And if not that, probably The Undertaker versus Roman Reigns. Reverse the scenarios this year at WrestleMania. I would go for something like Brock Lesnar versus Dean Ambrose, with Brock as defending champion against Dean Ambrose. If you wanted the Wyatts to factor in, they could, probably throwing Braun Strowman in there at the last minute, pulling in interference, probably cashing in on something like the Money in the Bank briefcase, if that would have been happening earlier on last year. In 2015, substitute somebody who had the briefcase like Sheamus with someone like Braun Strowman and see where we go from there with Braun Strowman coming out and cashing in on, say, Brock Lesnar in the main event of WrestleMania, and opposed to Roman Reigns being in the main event for the championship, we could have something like Roman Reigns versus The Undertaker for The Undertaker's career, and if not, that's Sting versus The Undertaker, with Sting probably coming out and interfering in the match between Roman and The Undertaker if that were the case. Again, a better card offered to us in the mind of me as just a fan of professional wrestling than creative are offering us, and that leads you to believe something is wrong. Something is being overshadowed and kayfabed, either or works both ways of what's going on here. But I don't see ratings or us as wrestling fans benefiting from this, any of this, anytime soon. And that's really frustrating when you're talking about it from the point of view of a wrestling fan who's excited for more and wants more out of WrestleMania 32, but doesn't seem to be going to be getting it anytime soon. You can get in on the conversation. That's what I want you to do. I want you to give me your opinion on Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker, because honest to God, guys, I'm not a fan of this. And I don't think anyone, I think I speak for all wrestling fans when I say you are not a fan of this or going to be a fan of this anytime soon. But regardless of how we may or may not feel about this, Shane McMahon has returned. He wants control of WWE, and it's beyond me at this point if it's going to happen. And I shudder to think what kind of direction we are headed in the fallout of what could be the most disastrous WrestleMania in at least the last 10 years we have seen in the last decade. Hopefully, Here Comes the Money is what's relevant in WWE, and it's what people really want to see. And I hope you don't regret these chants of this is awesome anytime soon, because I want to be hearing anything but this is not awesome in the fall of the WrestleMania 32. I hope you don't regret these chants of this is awesome, because I am seriously in doubt of Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker, and I think I speak for everyone when I say this does not need to be happening, and probably Shane McMahon is returning a little bit too late, don't you think? I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke, and I will talk to you again next week. Like what you hear? Tell us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.